Hey everybody, welcome. Red morning. Another wonderful Saturday morning in the summer, and you're spending it listening to us run our fucking mouths. Hey Carl, you been sounding a little bit weird, man. What's on the go? How you doing?
Well, I don't know, man. I can't even. Either I'm getting more cantankerous as I age, or the biannual Manosphere meltdown is getting more and more retarded every couple of fucking years. I mean, you've got guys wanting to write a book on the history of the Manosphere while thinking Ironwood is a fucking golf club manufacturer, Chateau Hartis is a winery, and asking what the hell happened to the first four fucking Rooshes. Like, fair enough. I mean, I couldn't tell Kyle Trouble and Good Looking Loser apart for like a goddamn year, but the influx of personal brands with their spin on things, which all seems to boil down to gym, tan, laundry, and Lacan, is grinding on my last fucking gear. I mean, I wish I could go back to the goddamn Neo Reaction save stuff on the Red Pill Reddit. At least that was somewhat sensible. I mean, this latest string of stupidity is just out of control. I mean, you got Cher from Clueless arguing philosophy with the chick from Legally Blonde. And you got guys role playing Russian, and I don't know the difference between the red square and fucking four square. I mean, come on, uspokoj Zazargay. Then you have LARPers out there doomsday prepping for the infinity war with fucking feminism, Democrats, and central banking, but the only thing going through quantitative easing is their fucking waistline. Like, we talk about six figures all the time, but if your BMI is hitting six figures, fuck feminism. French fries, diabetes, and coronary heart disease are the biggest threats to your family's way of life. Put the cheeseburger fucking down. Like, we have guys coming on here, like, I want my wife to fuck me, and how do I get a girl? And they get this shitstorm of courses content about everything except getting their dick wet. I mean, Stedman, for all his hot takes, at least answered the fucking question he was asked about how to get sex from your wife. You ask her to please touch your penis. It's not a great answer, but at least he answered the goddamn question. Like, we tell guys not to step on their dick, but how can you not do that as a newbie in this space? I mean, guys come in here and they're like, how do I get pussy? And the response is, first buy my 12-step course on how to do copywriting and dropshipping. And once you get through that, you have to read Aristotle, Bakunin, Cicero, Dostoevsky, Ebola, Foucault, Goethe, Hegel, Isocrates, Jefferson, Kafka, Lacan, Marx, Nietzsche, Occam, Paine, Quentin, Rousseau, Sartre, Thoreau, Udayana, Valentinus, Wittgenstein, Xenocrates, Senwan, and Zizek. Poor bastard is like, when do I get to talk to a girl? And dudes be like, hold on there, grasshopper. Do you even six-pack ab? You don't even have a Shopify account yet. And, I'm not saying this to shit on people, but this whole building your personal brand, building your biz, and building your fucking cult of personality is really getting in the way of helping men get laid. A guy comes in here like, I just want to lose my fucking virginity. And dudes be like, there'll be plenty of pussy for everyone. And by that, I mean the ruling council will assign you a fucking wife as soon as we clean our rooms, wash our dicks, and say Western Civ. And the poor bastard is like, so when do I get laid? Oh, chill out. We'll get back to you on that one. Can I interest you in my Become the Hulk program? Trust me, you want to be jacked and shredded for the gender war. Did you sign up for my Patreon yet, by the way? Do us Volt. Do us Volt, man. I mean, like our old school advice wasn't exactly fantastic. It's like go grind out 100 approaches, learn 3 openers and hit the club, learn magic tricks and wear a fucking top hat. But at least those things got you in the vicinity of girls, not stuck in a fucking Google Hangout doing a cold shower burpee contest with 40 other dudes who are also not getting laid on that Friday night. And the things I hate the most about this shit is I actually have to concede a point to Pat Hot Take Stedman. And that most people seem to skip right over what do I want and go for tell me what to do, master. Fucking hell, man. I mean, Jim Jones would love the Manosphere. Like, plenty of guys willing to pay him handsomely for telling him what to do. He probably wouldn't even do the mass suicide thing because he'd be too busy plugging his Kool-Aid affiliate links. I mean, for fuck's sakes, I could put out a book right now, do exactly as I tell you to become your own man, and people wouldn't even catch the fucking irony. I could probably tack on a $347 course in a premium Snap account because we're about 2 email courses away from someone selling Manosphere Guru bathwater. And, that's only going to be followed by another fucking course on how to earn 7 figures by selling Manosphere Guru bathwater. Like, I get it. Like, Gendernomics 2 is my answer to realizing that most men who come here are not a pair of contacts in a suit away from slaying poon like Stefan or Kell or some shit. But damn, keep your eyes on the ball. Like, I'm all for teaching guys how to get in shape, get solvent, and suit it up, but those are means to an end. And you don't want to sit there in 5 years and be like, yeah, I just got my IFBB Pro card, I make 7 figures, I drive a Corvette, I run 3 side hustles, I can explain Hegel, and it's been 10 years since someone touched my fucking penis. For the love of God, like, how can we get men of value to come into this space when it's more embarrassing to be associated with the fucking soyosphere than with Harvey Weinstein? Like, I would rather be caught on the Lolita Express than in a location with these people. Like, what do you guys do for a hobby? Like, I hunt. That's cool. I'm more into fishing. How about you, Carl? Well, I hang around with a bunch of dudes discussing how men can forge a traditionally masculine identity based on second-rate philosophy, occultism, cold showers, and Myers-Briggs to counter the gynocentric narrative leading to a gender war. Like, I get it. Like, guys want to quit their day job and make money off the space, and you can monetize squats and milk. Like, Strong Lifts 5v5, it's not easy to make money off that because, well, it's all free online, so you can just go and look that shit up. So they create this personal brand consisting of cars, beards, cigars, whiskey, guns, and roleplay Arnold and Predator. They're basically some man tits in a Harley Davidson jacket short of Paul fucking Elam. And to be fair, some of these guys are just missing the goddamn Harley jacket. And to go with their Conan the Cocktarian image, they need a unique selling points like philosophy, physique, money, spirituality, whatever they can pull out their ass. I mean, for fuck's sake, you've got Manosphere content creators embracing chick crack. I mean, the first rule of chick crack is don't get high off your own supply. You're supposed to game bitches, not yourself. Don't be Hulk Hogan there marking out for your own character. At least accept that, you're here for a purpose. And, stop asking what value the Manosphere can create for you and start asking how you can create value for the Manosphere. Like, this shit is not all that hard, Don't be fat. Don't be a spurg. Talk to girls. There. Now you don't have to learn fucking drop shipping. Jesus fucking Christ.
You had me at Paul Elam and Predator in the same sentence. I never thought I would hear the words put together before.
It's like the most annoying thing ever. It's like I'm tempted to put up like a contest. Like, who said this? AJ Cortez, Pat Stedman, or Taylor Burrows?
Oh,
like,
dude, that's gonna be like the Vancouver website, Crack Shack or $1 Million Home. People are gonna screw that one up. I am looking forward to seeing the week-long fest of all those people you called out saying the Manosphere is dead now.
Oh, the Manosphere is dead. It's thank God, though. I mean, I get Troy on this. I mean, hopefully someone can just fire up a huge incinerator and just kind of cremate the crap out of that. Maybe where would we spread the ashes of the Manosphere? I mean, I'm sure there's a Gold's Gym somewhere.
No, we got to do Planet Fitness. Gold's Gym people actually work out at.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure. Maybe dropping it on like over a Starbucks or something.
I was gonna. They had something in there. Oh yeah, Stedman. I always love the Stedman. Man, Stedman.
I'm saying to call people out. It's just like I just imagine like 19-year-old me finding the current incarnation of the Manosphere, and like 5% of the content is about getting your dick wet, and the other 95% seems to be how how to do copywriting and drop shipping. And I kind of get, guys need to be in shape. Guys need to kind of fix their diets. But, like, there are fat motherfuckers out there right now who got laid last night.
Without coke.
Go to a Walmart. There are fat people getting laid all the time. There are low-value people getting laid all the time. If you're, like, in this kind of cycle where you're kind of wanting to check everything off that goddamn bullet point list, so you're like the perfect guy who no one can reject before you actually hit on a girl, you're never going to get laid because you'll never be perfect. And I think all in all, this is just one hella complex way of avoiding rejection.
Oh, 100%. Dude, you never have that Catholic guilt thing is there, so that way you always go back to the church because everything you do is wrong, but we can make you feel better. This whole thing has that same vibe to it. I don't know. It's almost like we had to make up our own god, and we used the woman of Wollendorf. Pussy is our god, but we don't want it.
I don't know. Like I said, I get where guys are coming from because going out there and being rejected is never fun. That's why you need to do it a few hundred times so it doesn't hurt as bad. Like when the first time you're fired from a job, it's like your whole entire world is collapsing. And then next time you get fired, it's okay. Your world didn't collapse. Your apartment building did. And time after that, there's a fire in your kitchen. Time after that, you accidentally knocked a wine glass off the desk. You just wipe that shit up and move on.
Yeah.
And those first 10, 20 rejections, they're hard to handle. But then again, I mean, what you have to keep in mind here, if a girl rejects you off a 1 hour date, she's not really rejecting you.
She's reject. Yeah.
Yeah, she barely knows you. It's much harder, when you let's say you were dating a girl for 10 years and that girl broke up with you. That's actually a rejection of you. Because don't worry, Brian, I don't think your mom is going to walk in on you.
Well, I was just looking. I'm like, I think, did we do 10 years or 11 years? Do you know something I don't?
No, she didn't tell me anything when I met her last week.
See, that's the only reason I know that's not true is because you wouldn't want your real life face getting around to the circles that you discuss this crap on. It's not even that you wouldn't like her or you would like her. That's the only reason. I was just thinking on that. Like, I've been laid off a bunch, and I remember the weirdest thing is when you see you're getting a layoff and everybody sits in the room because they're expecting you to go postal. When did that become a thing, by the way, where everybody has to assume? Yeah, is that like after Tom Cruise's movie there, everybody assumed that every guy who ever gets laid off or fired is going to just freak out?
Well, the whole term comes from the fact that, it was something that postal workers would do.
Yeah.
So they'd get fired or get laid off and they'd come back and shoot the place up. And it's actually an American thing, too.
Yeah, that's what I don't get, though. Like in Canada, Europe seeing that thing. It's just strange. Like I remember the last time it happened to me, the guy was, everybody's doing the speech. They're trying to act all empathetic and that. And I'm just sitting there like, asking questions about the severance package, and then I was pretty much done. I was actually had a big smile on my face because I didn't like the commute anyway.
Well, it's a thing with it's being rejected is never, like I said, never fun, but it's a buffer strategy, like Troy's saying in chat. It's basically a way to avoid real world rejection. That's the same thing we had with, I can't remember where it was, when the guy was really good with his online game, but he had like a girl in his real life, and he kind of screwed that up. He was fired on. Was that last week's show or was that on Rule Zero? I don't remember.
Well, there was something like that where one of my clients had that. He knew a girl in real life, and the way he treated her on Tinder was completely different than he treated her in real life. And she was noticing that segmentation. But I know what you're talking about. I want to say that was a Rule Zero. I think that was John's one.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it's just what it has to do with it. Just texting is a nice buffer because you don't have to. The girl doesn't see you. And when the girl doesn't see you, you don't care as much because it's not as real. It's one of those, I don't know what to call it, but I just think it's a way for guys, like, if you're focusing on doing your burpees in the cold shower with 40 other dudes, and, I kind of get where the whole term phagosphere comes from when you imagine 40 dudes in the shower together doing burpees. But there's like a strange homoerotic thing going with some of this tribe scrap, and I'm not even shitting on people. I'm just saying, like, if you're spending your Saturday with like a group of 10, 15 dudes all talking about showering, I don't know.
All I can picture is it like a Police Academy 80s camp version of it. I don't know why, but that just makes me laugh. But yeah, rejection, I don't get it. Maybe it's because we got that blunted effect we were talking about, but like, I'm fine with rejection. It doesn't really affect me, but there's obviously something about a guy's ego where he takes it that badly. Even if he breaks up with somebody, he'll still freak out at her for like the next month and a half on Twitter. But like, I wish there was a psychological phenomenon you could point to for that. So that's something you could address, but I really don't know, other than just numbing it. Well, what is it that
ego injury? It's like it's same thing with like the Vox State did some good writing on gamma males.
Oh, I've read extensively on it. I've needed that information recently.
And it's a similar thing because what happens is essentially, when, like, if you break up with a BPD girl, they will relentlessly hammer you until they find something else to do. And it's same thing with like narcissistic injury in narcissists. Like if you insult a narcissist, he will keep going after you until A, you're dead, or B, they find something else to do with their time. And it's just they take it as being, against them. And the same thing with I think we talked about people who are told that they're smart their entire lives, so they never really tried, because if they fail because they didn't really try, they always have that way to defend themselves. But if they tried real hard and still failed, then that would really, really be a rejection of them, where they would have to redo their whole image, because it's easy to kind of sit there in your apartment or your mom's basement or in your green screen bar and, think like, I'm completely unrejectable. I'm the best man ever. I'm the smartest, most fantastic little boy ever. But then you go into reality, and to some extent, that's kind of the interesting thing. You're always kind of negotiating your self-image with reality, because you're putting things out there and you're testing it. Yeah, if you're healthy, you're putting things out there and you're testing the response to it. And if it's good, you keep doing it more. If it's bad, you keep doing it less. And if the reaction is nothing, well, you may or may not. It's positive, negative, and neutral reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And your self-image has to some extent be congruent with reality. When your self-perception is very, very distant from reality, you can usually be called if you have a psychosis, what happens with you is that you are unable to accurately interpret reality according to, it's like, have you seen the movie A Beautiful Mind?
Yeah.
Yeah. John Forbes Nash had schizophrenia. So a lot of the things he was observing were real. So he kind of saw the patterns, but he saw patterns that weren't there. So he got this whole delusion that, the KGB was hunting him and whatever. And it's just, he had a problem interpreting reality. And that kind of axiom spiraled into a whole delusion. And a delusion is kind of interesting, because a lot of the time, if you talk to a schizophrenic, and I've talked to kind of a lot of people who have mental issues, and especially psychosis.
We all have in this space.
And the thing is, their psychosis is perfectly logical if you accept that one faulty premise.
Oh yeah, it's the leap. It's the jet fuel melts steel beams thing. They always skip that part where you have to make that giant leap, but once you're there, the logic is sound.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things. So, and I think it's the same thing with a lot of people. It's like they just don't like negative feedback, and none of us do. No one likes to, if you go, when you're in school, no one likes to get their test back, because they're always concerned that, hey, I failed, or hey, I didn't get a good grade, and you feel like it's a negative thing on you. And to be honest, it is.
Yeah.
Because they're basically telling you that you weren't good enough to get this good grade, or you weren't good enough to get this good performance review. But a healthy person will accept that feedback and will work harder to do better next time, or to improve for the next performance review.
You see, and this is a peacetime military problem. I'm using that analogy, because military is great when you're at war, because, people die or things get done. So everybody focuses in the mind. And when you're so busy worrying about not starving, you tend to leave all this navel gazing crap behind. Problem is now is it's too easy to eat. It's too hard to die. And even if you try to die, doctors will probably fix you up again. And so we've kind of got this wonderful idea that we need to start navel gazing about our place in the universe and building all these elaborate traps to avoid the answer. I really wish that we could have some kind of, I don't even think of a Spartan thing, but just go be poor for the first 10 years of your life, and then you can go back to your silver spoon. I think that would do a world of good.
No, I kind of agree with you. I think kind of this is the problem that we're having now, because with the 747 genders, with everyone having some kind of mental disorder, or I think it's just a way of inventing problems. It's like that whole thing in the Matrix. We created a perfect world for humans, but they rejected it, because humans kind of need to be miserable and complain about something.
Yeah, well, it's how we get motivated. Anger, grievance in general. Can't do it for hunger anymore. But yeah, so we go out of our way to try and establish, to get some kind of boundaries. And life is so easy right now that we can't get any. And I really don't know how to fix it other than, like you said, hardship, like getting those rejections. But then you get, and that's just, again, everybody always has to spurg everything and take it to extremes, because that's how those cold shower knuckle push-up people firing guns on the rage, talking about protecting their family, come from too. So at least for me, I find the challenge is to articulate that need for hardship without taking it to that extreme level where you're LARPing it.
Well, I think the hardship thing is needed, but I also think it's kind of easy to kind of like, you know, the looks max guys.
Unfortunately.
You know, I think it's so easy to kind of distill everything down to like it's one thing that's kind of the most important thing of everything. And most of the time, it's like, I don't think I've ever heard a girl be like, yeah, I would sleep with you, but I just noticed I have a class 2 jawline, so my panties are now coming back up.
Mm-hmm.
It's about reaching a certain level where you don't have a lot of like major issues. Like, okay, if you're 450 pounds, that's a major issue. The girl is going to be worried about, you know, will he die on me? Is he going to crush me? What if he passes out during sex and falls on me? Like, what's going to happen there? So you're going to have to need a lot of money or a lot of something else to kind of get past that bar the girl has for requirements for a guy to sleep with.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's so easy to fall for that, like the, what is it, the perfect solution fallacy or like the nirvana fallacy.
Yeah, well, I always call it the Voltaire, the perfect being the enemy of the good. If I quote that right, I always tend to screw these things up. I'm not very high IQ, apparently. So,
no, I've heard that. A lot of egg accounts on Twitter have been telling me that.
I hate high IQ thing. Drives me. Well, it doesn't drive me nuts, but it irks me, mostly because the other guy, and it's so painfully obvious that they want to believe they're high IQ, and then I keep thinking back to Talib's quote about midwits, and that's all I can think of right then. The guys who are just high enough IQ that they can be self-conscious about their IQ because they're not smart enough to be a genius, but they're not stupid enough to not care.
Yeah, what's your MBTI though, bro? Troy's asking.
Troy, you're a dick, man.
I think that's kind of funny though. It's one of those things where like I've used MBTI as chick crack for freaking years.
Oh yeah, I can see corporate girls loving it.
Yeah, corporate girl. Well, any girl who's like in like the high IQ range, or you know, every girl loves like spiritual things that are all bullshit, but she tells her something about herself. That's why they love the cube and horoscopes and all that crap. So in the end, I mean, MBTI works great for that, but you're not really supposed to fall for it.
Oh, I agree. Get high off your own supply. A wise man once ranted about that 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the whole thing with it is just that the red pill for me is always going to be about learning the truth about intersexual dynamics. That's like the basic idea with it. And then once you know that, you have a motorcycle manual to tell you how to work that to your advantage. Same thing with like books on investing. Like it's not necessarily 100% truth, but at the same time, things like diversification.
Yeah, they teach you tools, concepts, and then from there you build your own investment strategy. Actually, that's funny you put it as an investment, because I was thinking about that. A lot of guys saying, well, what do I do to get laid? That's like looking at an investing book or an investing guru or whatever and saying, yeah, what stock should I invest in? But that's completely not the question that you should ask him. So he's not even going to be able to answer that.
No, of course not. It's going to be based on like, if you just want to get laid any way you can, as quickly as you can, get a hooker.
Yeah, a hooker or break the law. In that way, I'm not recommending you should.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that either. And someone might take that as actual advice. I actually had to caution people, and I jokingly said, just grab her by the pussy. And John had to jump on like, hey, he's not meaning that literally, guys. Don't go out there grabbing girls by the pussy.
Yeah, you know it's serious when John drops the bravado and is like, all right, guys. That boy makes me laugh.
No, the entire thing is just, I think guys have a way of making everything inherently complex.
Well, it's that same thing with a buffer. And it taps into our need to discover and to conquer and to learn. Tinker.
Because like I had the same thing. That's why I've read so much Manosphere shit, because I pretty much read everything just because I wanted a lot of information for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Then at some point you have too much information because like you need a certain amount of information to make a good decision. But there's also too much, such a thing as having too much information. So you're basically choice paralysis or whatever you want to call it, or analysis by paralysis. You have too much information, and none of the information is leading towards one sure conclusion. And it's always comes down to the whole thing with like you can read Rollo,
right?
But it's not everything there is going to make perfect sense. Like some guys conceive hypergamy like a binary, like all girls are equally hypergamous. But it's more heuristic in nature in that, okay, you know, if you start dating a girl and you kind of shack up with her and you then start dropping your value, you don't tease her anymore, you don't smack her ass when she walks by, you don't bother, you start farting in front of her, all that type of shit, then your value is dropping.
Yeah, and eventually she's going to move on.
Yeah, eventually she's going to be like, well, I don't want to bang this guy who's gained 100 pounds next to me. And it's not that difficult. Like, same thing with a guy who marries a girl and she, you know, puts on 150 pounds with the first pregnancy.
Oh, those poor bastards, too.
Basically, same thing. It's not like not think it's a huge issue for them. It's just that you dropped your value, so she moved on. It's same thing with, like, if you want to enter into a business partnership with someone, and the first year you were both working around the clock, and then suddenly you're still working 80 hours a week, and they start working 20, but they still get 50% of the income. And sooner or later, you're either going to have to sit them down and have a talk with them, or you're going to have to, you know, dissolve the partnership because you're bringing in a hell of a lot more value, and they're just sitting there absorbing value.
Oh, I agree. I've heard of a lot of companies that end up buying out partners because the partners start putting in.
Yeah, so it's just a natural thing with humans. I mean, we don't like unfair division of cash or of resources, so to speak. So if your girl feels like she's carrying the whole load, and you know, women will always feel like they're the ones contributing the most.
Oh God.
The question is to what level and how accurate are they, and what do they feel that differential is?
Well, that's the thing too. So girls, and it was something Archwinger had, and it was really fascinating, is that girls don't perceive the task, like how much work is involved, isn't how they value it. It's how important the task is. So cleaning the house, even though that may be like a 4-hour job if you got a big house, they'll treat that as less important than having to pay a bill on time or losing your hot water tank. It's one of those neat things that a lot of guys have figured out once they start becoming high value, is that if you handle all those ones, and the key point is the risk of failure or rejection. Once they start handling those tasks, they'll find the girl treats those as more valuable than the stuff she's doing. Meanwhile, the guy thinks the opposite way, like, this is way less work. Why wouldn't I want to do this, as opposed to that drudgery? So it's this neat little polarity thing, which I found with it. And this is why I like talking about complexity v depth. I'm kind of doing a ranty thing here, but so you were talking about reading everything in the Manosphere because we were all loving it. And I'm the same way. I love it. But I liked reading just enough to get started and then start doing some things. And then the reading from that point becomes a hobby or learning the nuances or getting more depth. And I wish more guys took that approach as opposed to trying to get the entire body of knowledge before taking any steps. Like first year Rollo and Book of Puck is good enough for you to get started. And then once you're doing that, you can kind of peruse around through Manosphere, the rest of Ironwood stuff, even Athol K's Married Men's or the Alpha Moves book, which I'm not going to lie, out of all the Manosphere books, that's the one I like the least, mostly because of the fedora line in there.
No, the thing is, I think what happens with a lot of guys is that and Pat Stedman is entirely correct in this, and you have no idea how much it hurts me to say that. But a lot of guys, they come here and they've always had like a list in their head that they're working off. They need to get good grades in high school. They need to get into a good college, graduate with honors, get a good job, and then they'll find a wife. And they do all that stuff. They get red pill somehow, divorce or whatever. And then they bring that same thinking to the manosphere. And part of that is good, because if you're the kind of guy who can ingest information, form conclusions, implement it, and integrate it to your life, those are traits that are going to greatly help you on your manosphere journey. However, if you're one of those guys who like to read everything and never implement anything, and not think, what are my goals with this? What am I looking to get out of this? Then
sheep looking for a shepherd.
Well, you're putting the cart before the horse, because you have to figure out, okay, and I had this with John. I'm not sure if you'd left the call when we had this discussion about the guy who wanted to start his business.
Yeah, I had to leave for that one.
And he was like, what business should I start? And my thing was, figure out what kind of lifestyle you want first. Like, if you want, a Tim Ferriss style 4-hour work week business, figure out something that'll work with your lifestyle. If you're running a side hustle and you still have a 9 to 5, then you kind of have to keep in mind that, okay, you won't be able to deal with your side hustle between 8 o'clock in the morning and, let's say, 6 o'clock at night. So you can't, have some kind of phone business where you rely on people calling you. So, and it's the same thing with the manosphere, really. You just have to figure out what do you want to get out of it. And in some cases, guys want a long-term relationship. Okay, that's fine. You need to read the relevant material, and you have to realize that, okay, you're going to have to kiss a few frogs, as women usually put it. Because, a lot of guys end up wifing up the first girl who will touch their penis. And they never really have any other qualifiers for the girl other than she's willing to touch my penis. And that's not really a good foundation to build a long-term relationship on. You have to make sure that you're at least, somewhat aligned. And how do you know, who's, let's say, a quality woman, trademark, and who is like a bad choice? You don't until you've actually sampled a few different choices, because you'll start seeing things like, okay, this girl was better in bed than that girl. Like, the first time you have sex, it's the best sex you've ever had every time. But when you're having sex for the 100th time, it's not nearly as good. And like, if the first girl who slept with you is the woman you end up marrying, you don't know if she's good in bed, is she bad in bed, is she experimental? You don't have a good enough sampling to know. So you end up around the barbecue table, drinking Bud Lights with your buddies, grilling and talking about church. And you find out that, like Bob across the road gets a blowjob every 3 weeks, not every 4 weeks. And you figure out that this guy is doing swinging with this girl, that guy is in an open relationship, and you start to realize there are more than just one way of doing things.
Thank you, babe.
And I think that's the one thing that a lot of guys miss out on with this space, is they think it's a one size fits all, when in reality you have to tailor it to your preferences. Like, I have an essay about that I've been writing for a while that I'm hopefully going to publish in the next couple of weeks, that deals with, I hate nightclubs. I can't stand clubs. I can't stand loud bars. And so my thing with it, I never go there. I tailor the way I apply game and dating to not having to go to those fucking places. And the reason for that is just that I don't want to be there, and it doesn't cater to my strength, because my strength is humor, it's conversation. It's definitely not dancing. So if all of my strengths are negated in a loud nightclub, and all my weaknesses are played up.
See, I take a kind of a different approach to it. I think guys are stupid and don't know what they want. And this goes way back when it was me and another poster. Anybody who's old school will remember Jack Ten of Hearts. He used to do that very individualized, what do you want approach to things. He got burned out really quick. The approach I took was almost every guy is pretty much interchangeable. If you stick around to see guys' problems, there's maybe 6 altogether passive grievances that guys end up in this space from. And you tell each one of those guys, like, go get your dick wet. And if they can't meet that marker, then they have no business thinking about what their preferences are. Like, they have no frame of reference. And it's like you said, the first girl that touched their dick, they'll settle down with. So it doesn't matter what your goal is. If you can't get more than one girl to want to sleep with you, whatever your goal is irrelevant, because you have no ability to influence the world on that. Nightclubs. I hate nightclubs too. Most of my game was in nightclubs, specifically because I hated being in nightclubs. And I liked that idea of getting out of my comfort zone and being able to find success in a place where I wouldn't otherwise do it. Like, I'm sure it would work better if I was just on online dating. And I know for a lot of guys, it's easy because it's only the girls that are interested in you that even swipe. So you already start with a leg up. Granted, you're probably going to get a lot of swiping left there, but point out, it's just most guys, if you can't handle the basic bare bones of going to pick up a girl that you don't like and sleeping with her, then you have no business navel gazing about what kind of business you should run in that, because you're going to screw it up.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. It's just, I get that not every guy wants to, pull the full degenerate lifestyle, and I get that guys have morals, they have values.
Yeah, how do they know? That's the thing. How do they even know?
But because people told them they do. And like, it's one of those things I say on occasion that usually pisses off the churchitarians.
Mm-hmm.
But if they had been born in Dubai, they would all be Muslim.
100%.
They'd been born in Delhi, they would all be Hindus or some crap. They'd been born in Israel, they would be Jewish. It's just a case of they happen to be born in a place where the dominant religion was Christianity. They got that spoon-fed into them. Like, not to be peak atheist here, but like, if we made it illegal to teach people about religion until they were like 18 or 20, how many Christians or Muslims would you have? Probably a lot fewer, just because people would be able to ask the right questions. Like, when you're told about Samson and David and Solomon and everything, while you're still believing in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, you don't really have those critical faculties to ask the right questions. And it's a lot of the time it's the same issue, because I think a lot of guys are struggling with experience. They're basically guys who are, like I've said it before, like 7 years behind on the social development scale. And they kind of have to leapfrog to catch up with everyone else, because think about this, like 12-year-old boy talks about action figures. 13-year-old boy is probably focused on sports ball. 14-year-old boy is video games. 15-year-old boy, video games. 16-year-old, maybe cars or something like that. 12-year-old girl, boys. 13-year-old girl, boys. 14-year-old girl, boys. 15-year-old girl, boys. Like, girls start swapping notes about boys when they're like 12.
Pretty much. Well, I was even thinking, my hometown, I can't think of a single girl who is over the age of 15 and still a virgin. From a guy's perspective, that's mind-boggling. Especially these traditional guys. Like, I see a lot of Catholics that were like that too. There was a Catholic denomination around my hometown, and they were always talking about the Catholic girls and the nice girls. I'm like, dude, you really don't know anything about those anything but Catholics, do you?
No, and I think it's just a case of realism versus an idealized world, because people, like, if you're, let's say, if you think back to when you were like 13 or 14, it didn't even cross your mind that the girls in your class was sleeping with anyone. But that's when girls start losing their V card.
Pretty much.
And, it's always because, like, girls tend to date boys who are like 2 years older than them most of their life, or older men, but usually in that age, it's like a 15-year-old guy dating like a 13 or 14-year-old girl. That's usually like the gap. So seniors dating juniors or freshmen, whatever.
Yeah.
So they're dating a guy who, and that guy probably loses his virginity to that girl, because the girls his own age were dating the guys who were 2 to 3 years older than them. So guys are just naturally a lot behind. And if you're not one of those guys that luck out and, have a little bit of game when you're 13, so you start trying to slay chicks when you're like 13, or you hang out with your older brother and his friends, so you learn from them and so on.
Right.
You're just naturally going to start quite a lot behind your equivalent girl. I think that's why men date younger women as they age too, because, well, to some extent it's the baggage thing. But it's also the fact that when a guy is like 35, 40, and he's dating a 25-year-old girl, they're more on parity with their experience in relationships.
I can't put a bigger rubber stamp of approval on that. When I talk with a girl my age, she drives me nuts, generally. They tend to be very ornery. very argumentative, very dead and sushi like, and it's like whatever, you be you, do your thing. But as a guy, if I want to invest a lot of my life into it, I'm not putting up with that crap. Like, why would I?
No, it's also one of those things I notice when I'm out in the dating market. Like if you start to, hit on like 22 to 25-year-old girls, like I'm in my 30s, they also don't have that same timeline. Like the timeline is very clear when you're on a date with like a 32-year-old.
Yeah.
Like you show up for that first date and she's like, where do you see us in 5 years?
Jesus Christ. Here, we'll slow that one down there. Hector Solo, thank you for the 50 Mexican peso super chat. I decided to file for divorce. Wife does not bring much to the table, but I can help to second guess my decision because we have a 4-year-old daughter. I think he means can't help. I'm not sure if there's a question in there or just a statement either.
Well, the thing is, I think you'll always any breakup, you'll second guess your decision. Unless it's like, even with, even if the girl tries to stab you, you have moments where you question your decision to break up with her. So I think that's just kind of natural because you've made a decision. And once you get that ball rolling, it'll get easier and easier. But right now you're in that weird space, I'm thinking, where you've decided to file, or you're going to file, or you have filed. Like if you've already filed, then just keep going with it. But if you haven't filed, you'll be questioning that decision until you file, and you'll be questioning it after, because when the pain is the worst, that's after filing, when you're going through all that stuff with
the uncertainty of it,
child support, the uncertainty, but also, you have to figure out everything else. And then once you get your life back on track and you get your place sorted out, you start to live life on your terms again, it starts to get better. But it's like with my whole shoulder arm thing. Like I went back into the gym this week and I tried to do like some really like 40-pound chest presses or something.
How'd it go?
Just not very well.
Well, you didn't hurt yourself, I hope. I'm seeing you tweet again, so that's a good sign at least.
Yeah, I'm starting to be able to type a little bit with my left, but it's still not optimal. But anyway, the thing was, I just decided to go and test, and it was painful. So I figured, okay, I'll just keep doing cardio for a week, and next week I'll test again. And it's the same thing with the divorce. You just have to kind of keep moving forward slowly, get everything handled, and it will get worse before it gets better.
Mm-hmm. I always just trust the guy who made this decision probably knew what he was doing, so I just trust that. 6 months ago, I was certain of this, so why am I not certain now? And just plow through. Like I've upended and scorched earth my life and started again 3-4 times now, and each time I've never looked back, and I've never seen any negative consequences that I couldn't deal with and come out better from. So I keep that in mind with all of them.
Yeah, I also think it's one of those things where it's very useful to keep like a notebook somewhere. I'm not sure where I talked about this. Just write out the stuff that leads up to the decision, why you did, and write everything out so you can go back into that notebook and see, okay, what was I thinking when I made this call? What preceded it? Because if you have a notebook that's full of all the kind of crap your wife has been pulling over the past 2 years, it's pretty obvious what decision you need to make.
I would say, even if for no other reason, that memory makes bad memories go away, or time makes bad memories go away. I did that on my deployment. I actually kept a journal because I thought, how cool would that be? I'm circling the globe and write down how the things went, like Gulliver's Travels or whatever kind of nonsense I was thinking at the time. And we got back, and the year after we got back, all of us went from complaining about how crappy the deployment was to talking about how great the deployment was. And I remember going back through that journal, and I started reading this stuff. I'm like, no, this thing was pretty crappy. But we totally forgot after just a small amount of time. And I'm almost thinking that's why a lot of guys stick around with really crappy women that they shouldn't. It's because she gives it just enough time that you kind of forget how much it stings.
Yeah, and there's always going to be that nostalgia component to it too, where you think back about all the good times you had, because no one has a relationship that's unilaterally bad. Every relationship has its good moments and it has its bad moments. So you're always going to remember the good ones really clearly and the bad ones not so clearly. So it's a good idea to write things down.
Yeah, here I got a Stoic Red. I got his thing here on kids in a divorce, that there is no advantage to the kid when divorcing. Kids have no frame of reference. They don't know. They don't care. Half the people right now are kids of divorced parents. Like, it's just a fact of life. So we can say it's not an advantageous decision, but for the most part, it's pretty much one of those like realities of life you're going to have to deal with here. And I hate that idea that as soon as dad leaves mom, the kids are going to be broken forever in stripper shoes, because that's what keeps a lot of dads sitting around while their wives beat them. Screw that noise.
I also hate this. Like, you had this interaction with Hunter about dogs and kids the other day.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
And one of the things I kind of get is like, Rolo has this like post he shared a while ago. It wasn't one of his own, but it's like how to raise a kid these days. And it's like, oh, you have to be supportive but disciplinarian. You have to build their confidence but not let them be narcissistic. And it's like this whole fucking 20-point list. And it's like raising a kid any other time. Feed them occasionally.
Yeah.
I think it's very easy to kind of like, if you go back in time, like my grandfather, when he was like 10 years old, all of, 60, 70 pounds soaking wet, his dad told him to take 2 horses and lead them up a trail into the mountains. Or, my other grandfather, when he was 14, he signed up to a ship and he sailed to South Africa alone.
Fun.
And I think we're at a point in time where it's like, the kid isn't everything. Sorry for saying it. Like, the kid is going to be an important part of your life and you should put your best effort into raising them, but not at a cost of eradicating yourself. Because a kid gets its frame of reference from kids get their frame of reference from mom and dad. So if mom beats dad or dad beats mom, that's going to be their frame of reference for a relationship. And kids who have abusive mothers tend to end up with abusive wives, well, men anyway. And women who have abusive fathers tend to end up with abusive men. So you kind of want to make sure you're not setting the worst examples here, because God knows I spent a lot of years undoing a lot of the crap I got in from my parents, being my frame of reference.
Yeah, here's the thing that bothers me the most about it. So kids are people. You can shit on dogs for whatever. Dogs are dogs. Kids are people. And when parents start dumping their emotional hardship, and the one where like, my parents were divorced, so I promise I'll stay with these kids for life. You're not actually helping the kid. You're just soothing your own past grievances and you're using them as a surrogate. Could you imagine doing that to a full-grown person? Like treating them as your second chance at life? They'd probably punch you in the mouth and tell you to get out of their face. But you got this defenseless little thing, and all of a sudden parents think it's cool now to go force them to go to soccer practice because, dad didn't hug me enough or didn't buy me that pony when I was 6. And so I got to take it all out on this guy. It's like the ultimate. It's worse than being selfish, because they want to get praise for that as well. At least the selfish guy with just dogs and that, at least he's just saying, look, I'm not taking it out on a human being. I'm just going to have a dog that I hug.
Yeah, I also think a lot of this stuff is like it's funny because I think the problem we're having with parenting is the same problem we're having in every other area that, I kind of talked about last week, when you have like the guy selling like a fitness course who's geared to the gills and using insulin to drop body fat, etc.
Yeah.
And he's on all this stuff to build that physique, but he's selling to his customers that he's all natty. Or you have like the mom who's like a corporate CEO. She always has a spotless home. She always has fresh baked bread. She has the big career. She works out. She's in great shape, etc. And what she doesn't tell you is that she doesn't work 80-hour weeks. She works 20-hour weeks, and she works from home 2 days a week. So she has time to do all that crap. Meanwhile, the mom who's working on like an Amazon distributing warehouse or some shit is putting in 10, 12-hour days and is kind of beating herself up because she's not able to do what the other mom does. And the reality of the thing is just that you never get to see the behind the scenes footage. And I like to kind of share some of the behind the scenes footage as well to give guys a realistic view. It's like no one ever made an Instagram profile of, them driving an old Toyota, working at Denny's, dating fatties. But that's real life for a lot of guys. And if you're always comparing yourself to like people's highlight reel, you're never going to be satisfied with your own life.
Mm-hmm. And that's that kind of the topic we were talking about with inter and intra-sexual competition. That lifestyle masculinity inflation that guys have is just ridiculous. Because then it completely avoids being about what it is. Obviously, right now, being a man, for a lot of guys, that just means not being a woman or having freedom. That's so far is the best example I've seen of what it means to be a man, to have power as a man. And that's the freedom to do what you want without being hindered by something else. The government can't tell me what to do. My wife can't tell me what to do. I can travel the world, blah, blah, blah. The part that gets me, though, is that guys forget what the point of that freedom was, is so you can do things that you want to do to make yourself a better person or to enjoy life to the fullest or leave a legacy, whatever reasons. And then they start focusing on those symbols. And that's where you end up with 5 guys doing static shoots at a gun range talking about how it's protecting their family. Like somebody who's going to come in and mug them is going to, oh, wait, set your guard up. Yeah, stand there. I'll stand right here and come running at you. Then you can shoot. It's like, no, man. They're going to rob your house when you're not home because they don't want to deal with you. So that AR is not going to make you a man. It's just going to make you a man with a toy.
Plus, let's be fair. If you want a gun for home defense, pump action short barrel shotgun.
Can't go wrong with that anyway.
Well, the reason why I'm saying that is just simply that if you're not used to shooting at people,
it's got a good spread.
Exactly. You'll hit something. Yes, you'll also have to redo your drywall. But at the same time, it's effective in those enclosed spaces as opposed to, missing the guy 7 times because your pulse is 180 and you're shot full of adrenaline.
Yeah, see, this whole thing's got a war on terror vibe to it. How we spent trillions of dollars on the war on terror because terrorists killed 3,000 people once. Meanwhile, McDonald's French fries have killed more than that every day. Cars have killed 10 times as many people that. It's guys who have horrible risk analysis, and they're going to spend tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of thousands of hours on a range to learn how to shoot. Meanwhile, the pool boy is the biggest reason your family's going to get destroyed, not some invading mugger. And it drives me nuts because guys will avoid the simple, the easy, and the likely risks to aim at these hero-based risks. Every guy loves that story. He wants to be on the news with an army of 20 immigrant rapists came into his house and he fought them all off with his minigun, chain gun, Rambo style. He had to stab 3 of them to death at the end of it. Look at how great he is. Like, dude, you getting fat's going to destroy your family more than any of that is ever going to happen. Ever.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If you go back to the 50s, it's kind of fun because they had better risk analysis.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't concerned about some illegal immigrant coming to rob them. They were concerned about the mailman, the milkman, the guy who came by to check the electricity, and the neighborhood cop who was in there drinking coffee with all their wives.
And every 6 months they'd have a red scare and get over it.
So I think it's just kind of a nation of, a world of fear, so to speak, because and I think I blame it on news coverage and social media largely, because it's very easy. Like if you sit within the space we sit and you sit on Twitter,
mm-hmm.
wouldn't think that Western Civ was on fire.
Oh yeah, the decline of the West. I love the decline. I love Troy's thing where he keeps posting like these wonderful experiences he's having and talking about how the decline is just horrible. They make me laugh.
Well, it makes me laugh too because it's so easy to get caught up in this kind of narrative where you're selectively fed information that reinforces your delusion.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be the major issue with social media is that it used to be when you sat down and you read the paper from all the way through, you would get like a mix of news, and you would get that once a day. And it would be from reporters with at least somewhat differing points of view. And you'd read all of it because, that was the only entertainment you got that day.
Yeah, and it's hard to put fear into the written word the same way that visuals can do.
But now you sit on social media and you get videos, you get constant news articles, and everything has clickbait headlines like learn how coffee can kill your family. And it's like a picture of coffee with like an AR-15.
Yeah, some rich politician is a pedophile. Oh my God, hide your children. Just in case you go to Washington, D.C. and get to the higher echelons of power. Something might happen.
Yeah, it's for me, it's just this whole, what was the old thing? There are no poor people in America, just temporarily disadvantaged millionaires.
Yeah, and I guess Canada's not much better. We always cut down our tall trees, but then again, only rich people ever say that line. But that's the thing. It's all of it is narcissistic fantasy. All of it. Every single thing. If you want to talk about one problem with guys, I'd say it's that. They want to go to the gun range because real men know how to protect their family against a threat that doesn't exist. Or real men are scared of the world because the news is showing this stuff as scary. It's always the identity first and then the steps to get there second. And people suck at making those steps. That's why we get these weird, ridiculous symbols of guys doing knuckle push-ups in the winter or cold showers and all that crap, because visually, if you don't buy into the narcissistic fantasy, they all look absolutely ridiculous. It's no wonder women make fun of the Manosphere. I make fun of the Manosphere. But
I would rather be seen at a party with Epstein and Weinstein.
Double trouble, Steen.
Well, just because, like, if you think about it, a lot of the stuff looks ridiculous. Like, it's the same thing with, like, I always made fun of people who did like team sports, because they always have like these weird freaking superstitions. Like, okay, no one washed their jock strap all through the championship.
Oh yeah.
Oh well, I don't have my differently colored contacts. We're definitely losing today.
Yeah, and I get it. If you're inside the space, it makes perfect sense because you've all got that same narcissistic fantasy at the end line. But that's the hard part, is staying out of those so you can see these things more objectively.
So yeah, it's so when you stand outside and you look in and you see all this stuff, it looks like Paul Elam. I'm sure he thinks he looks cool with like his bar green screen in there, sitting there in his leather jacket. But you kind of look at that and you're like, is that a dude or a lesbian? I'm not quite sure.
I know. Hey, Quincy's in the chat. Look at that. Did you get banned again? You got a new chat. You got a new tagline, buddy. But oh yeah, the whole thing, it's ridiculous. And this is why I really hate, I think you put it in your essay where you talked about the clubhouse, like the 3 different definitions of red pill. The guys who treat it like a clubhouse and a club they get to belong to. I hate those guys. I shit on those guys, and I make the idea of a clubhouse where I'm in it so unattractive that I hope any normal person would not want to be a part of it, just to keep that part out so you can look at this stuff objectively. Because I see so many guys peddling trash on the subreddits, on their books, on their blogs, on videos, on whatever, and it's so obviously trash, but then you see 10,000 people following that lemming off the cliff, and I'm like, this is exactly why you can't have that stupid clubhouse masculinity, because people just aren't seeing how obviously ridiculous it is.
Well, my view is always like what we're trying to do, or at least what I'm trying to do, is make men more effective in their real lives with lifestyle design, because that's what this is about. It's about designing a lifestyle that you find enjoyable and using the information to do that. And once you stop doing that and you start focusing on the clubhouse and the internal rules of the tribe and so on, it's only a matter of time before you're completely unable to function in normal society. Like, I enjoy like the time you and I spend here.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, but I enjoy the time we spend here. I enjoy doing the Rule Zero shows and so on. I enjoy, talking with guys on Twitter, but that's a limited amount of my time. If I was just hanging out with red pill men all day,
I'd kill myself.
I wouldn't be able to function at work. I wouldn't be able to function with girls or anything, because you're just kind of stuck in this weird ass club that makes it completely impossible to relate with anyone outside of that club. And it's like, if you buy into the whole Western civis folly narrative, you'd think that when you walk outside your apartments, there are people fucking in the streets, there are trucks delivering cocaine like dominoes.
Sierra Laws roaming the streets.
Yeah, so it's just kind of exaggerations to kind of build a narrative. And once you kind of buy into it, it becomes like what is it, folia, like a madness of two, like it's a shared delusion. So you get this like idea of this is how the world works. It's kind of why I made fun of John, like one podcast he came on, and I was pretty sure he was broadcasting from a trailer in the Nevada desert about how the aliens took him up.
Oh yeah, the big pharma speeches.
I think that delusion, like the ancient aliens crap, I think like all these conspiracy theories, they're all variants on the same thing. It's just a way to build a clubhouse that shares that delusion. It's like you have guys doomsday prep. I think doomsday preppers are funny. It's like I'm not going to think they're funny when a disaster actually hits.
Yeah.
But like if you're a 300-pound doomsday prepper, you should probably work on losing the weight before you work on bringing more food into your house.
Yeah, you always notice that too. It's those doomsday guys. It's always huge character defects, and this is always that surrogate. I've never seen a guy who's got his act together, looks totally prepped, and then has like a bomb shelter underneath. Then again, there's probably going to be maybe one in the chat is going to come up and say, like, actually, I do whatever. Fuck whatever. I hate the doomsday guys. It's all, and that's weird. The competition part. And this was the point I was kind of wanted to talk about with the episode was the intra-sectional competition. Girls have purses because they want to fight with other girls to show how good a resource they can get from their man. But the problem with guys is they start picking the competition with other guys, but they pick unattractive men that aren't getting anything and getting any pussy. And so you're picking the wrong clubhouse to compete with. And I kind of tied in with when you were talking about the younger guys, how when a guy's 13, he's not even thinking about girls. Meanwhile, Stacy's getting hers on with a 17-year-old. But those guys are competing with the other 13-year-olds that also aren't getting any. If they were competing with the 17-year-olds that were getting some, they'd probably be much better off for it. And that's exactly like you said before, where it's a constant negotiation with reality over building what your lifestyle is. And if you guys notice, like we're dancing around the topics, but you'll see there's a thread going through all of this. It's whether you want the lifestyle to be the narrative, the narcissistic fantasy, or whether you want to build it from the ground up. Because when you say, Carl, when you say building up a lifestyle, I hear it as saying build it from the ground up. Do you lift? Yes. Do you have enough money to survive? Yes. Are you charming enough to get a girl? Yes. And then building up from there.
Well, it's one of those things like when you're like, if you knew you had money coming in every month, would you obsess about making money? If you knew that you can go to a new city and you'd have a lady or a girl in place in 7 days, would you be concerned about not getting laid? No. And it's about building those bricks. And then, like lifting. I like lifting, and I think being in physical shape has its own value. But then you have the guys who get so into lifting that they're not lifting to get girls anymore and to be in good enough shape to get a girl. They're lifting to be the biggest out of their 4 friends.
And all of them so big that the only one paying attention to them is the gays anymore.
Yeah, so to me, that's kind of like you've gone off the deep end, and that's why I like to make fun of that's why I made fun of like all the stuff in my rant earlier. Was just you're competing with other men about things that women do not give a shit about. Like girls can't tell the difference. Girls don't go around thinking, "Oh, am I 8% body fat, or is he 8% body fat, or is he 12?" They're looking, "Oh, he looks like he has some muscle. He's relatively thin. He has a decent looking face. Fair enough. If he's not a complete spurg, I'll fuck him."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just about people turn the intersexual competition. They turn the intrasexual competition into the racing rather than the intersexual competition. Like you're trying to get laid. Lifting, having, a decent lifestyle, not being a complete fucking spurg, being a normal person, those will all contribute to getting laid. Being able to tell the girl why the Hegelian philosophy criticism of Marx was wrong, that's not going to get you laid.
Not unless you want to screw Russian Chad.
So it's about that whole thing where you need to figure out like lifestyle thing. Like I said before, like I'm never going to be Mr. Six-Pack. I like food and drinking too much. Like I focus on not getting too fat. And you notice, like when I cut down last time, I was pretty lean there for a while.
Oh yeah, you were in the 170s, which is crazy for your height.
So it's about kind of cutting down to a point where, like, if you can do whatever you want at, let's say, 190 or 200 pounds or whatever, and you can maintain that weight with a little bit of effort. Maybe after Christmas, you throw in, a couple of weeks of a cut or a month of cutting just to kind of take off some of that Christmas weight, some of the eggnog weights. And then you just kind of stay within that range. And like, it's one of those things, like, unless you're picking up chicks on a beach, they're not going to be able to tell if you have a six-pack.
Pretty much. And by the time they find out, they're already too invested. Nobody cares. All you have to do is be attractive enough not to get shut down.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, it's kind of funny with it. It's a lot of the time getting laid just means getting out of your own way.
Not stepping on your own dick.
Yeah, well, it's like, because you have, like, especially if you're doing online dating and the girl already swiped right on you, she's attracted to you.
Mm-hmm.
So your goal is just not to prove her wrong. And I think they're also kind of forgetting one of Rollo's, like, basic things he wrote in, like, one of his year ones is never tell the girl why she shouldn't fuck you. Let her work that out for herself.
Dude, it's crazy how much depth that statement has. Crazy.
And a lot of guys just get into, well, I'm not Chad yet, so I can't get laid. And at the same time, you have like a fat dude who just picked up a single mom at Walmart who's getting laid right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, everyone can aspire to bang 9s and 10s. But at the same time, a lot of that's going to be ego investment. They're not doing that because they desperately want to bang the 9 or a 10. They want to tell other dudes they banged a 9 or a 10.
And that's a shame thing, too. I was thinking about that when you were talking about, I don't have a six-pack, but I'm good enough. I can just picture if you have a bunch of friends who are hardcore into fitness, basically poking fun and shaming you for being, oh, look at that pudge. You got, 15% body fat fuck. And that shame is such a good manipulative technique to keep everybody else in line. Like if you're the guy who really wants the status in your group, of course you're going to shame everybody around you. Call them a traitor or all this other crap because you want them to do what you're doing to give you confidence that what you're doing is any good. And so if guys are susceptible to that kind of manipulation and they're not confident in what they're doing, what they end up doing is doing it to get rid of that negative consequence of shame because they're treating that person in the center as the authority, which technically does boost his status. So it does work. But like you said, if you had some fitness goof making fun of you for having a little bit of a love handle, you're confident enough and like I get laid from this. So, fuck off is the only answer you give.
It's like I can't remember what movie it's from. Or I think it's actually one of Chris Rock's stand-up shows where some guy yells something about the way he looks. And he responds, shut up before I crush you with my wallet.
I think that's Chris Rock, yeah.
And it's such a good thing because a lot of the time it's one of those things that very few people talk about, but you're never going to be able to be the best at everything. So the guys who are the best at fitness are obviously going to use that to lord over you. Mm-hmm. The guys who are making the most money will use that to lord over you. The guys who's banging the hottest chick will use that to lord over you. The guy who has the highest social position or the most social power will lord that over you. But no one is going to be all of those guys.
Pretty much.
Or let's say very rarely. And, even Dan Bilzerian is going to be like, if he goes to some of the places in Monaco, he's going to be the brokest motherfucker in the room.
Well, and hasn't he already had a triple bypass before he was 40? So those guys that are all that, they burn the candle at both ends. So it's not a permanent state even then.
So for me, it's more about the whole thing of, figuring out what you want is kind of the most important thing. And, a lot of times that starts by determining your preference. And I think that's one of the things that gets very little attention in this space because it's not very monetizable to tell guys you have to figure out what you want. And the whole point of doing building value is just to say that, okay, you're going to have a lot of areas in your life that you need to fix. Because you don't unspurge your life. A lot of guys who come in here, they're not the type of guy who okay, you need to get a good haircut and you need to drop the Russian accounting classes. It's more like guys who are, they have multiple areas in their life they need to just get up to par.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, it's very easy to get lost in those prescriptions. So you kind of get going, so you start lifting, and then your favorite Manosphere guru is a heavy lifter. So, you start competing with him to become as big as he is or as strong as he is, or,
Never mind you're natty, he's on trend. So it's already a battle that he started 3 years before you, and he's on juice, and you're thinking that you have a chance. Like, it's always going to be, you're never going to catch it.
So for me, it's about dialing in that, for me, it's all about lifestyle design. Like, figure out, what do you want to spend, 3 hours a day at the gym? Do you want to do trend? Do you want to meal prep? Do you want to be that guy who can't go out with a girl to dinner because you won't have a track on all the exact macros in the meal you're being served? Are you the guy who is never going to be able to, leave your house because you're training to be in an imaginary bodybuilding contest?
Mm-hmm. And if you're going in a real one, that makes sense, but most people aren't.
Well, if you're going in a real bodybuilding competition and you can earn money from it, then it makes sense to do it. It also makes perfect sense to work 80 hours a week if the main thing in your life is building a business, and that's your mission in life, is to get that business up and running so you can retire when you're 40. But the funny thing about that is those guys who end up, they start from, I'm going to build this business and it's going to be huge so I can retire when I'm 40.
Mm-hmm.
They end up never retiring because they get so invested in the business, they die at their desk when they're 80.
Well, and to think about this, they give away so much of it. Like, those guys, so inexperienced with women that they find the first woman they can find who usually likes them for this stuff that they built, the gold digger type. And then she usually leaves. Like, even Bezos is a great example of that. How much less do you think he would have to work to be worth, how much was it, 90 billion less than he is now? And taken that time instead to work on game. Doesn't that seem like a much better use of time than focusing 80 hours a week on building a business, losing half of it 10 years down the line? It's like it's a one-trick pony, and one-trick ponies are very easy to take advantage of. Like, they're the plow horse. Literally the plow horse.
Yeah, and for me, I wrote this thing called Of Means and Ends some years back, and you always have to make sure, okay, and that was kind of something I lifted from Kant, because he uses that with his moral philosophy, always treat people as ends in themselves, not means to an end. So means are ways you get things, and the end is what you want to get to. So for a lot of guys, lifting, setting up a side hustle, learning game,
means to an end.
Copyright, they're doing that to get to an end, but at some point, those means become their entire identity, and they forget about why they're doing it, and they're just focusing on what they're doing. And those things are it's easier to grind at things you're comfortable grinding with than it is to do things you're uncomfortable with. Like the guy who's been building a side business for years, but still has his day job because he's scared of not having his day job. Or the guy who is in kind of a down, let's say he's in a bad relationship, but the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know.
Oh, I hate that attitude. But I hear it. Here's the thing, too. They also have a harder time letting go. For the guy who wants to work on his business 80 hours a week, for me, like, my identity was surrounded by the military for the longest time. The one advantage I have is once that no longer becomes a net benefit to your lifestyle, those guys who are invested that much in that thing, they can't let it go. And so they'll stick around while the thing starts to destroy their life from the inside out. That guy working 80 hours a week on business eventually, gets fat, gets a coke habit, starts alienating all of his guest speakers. Like, that's the kind of thing that happens when you're not able to let go of those things your ego invested in, or the means, and you lose sight of the end. The pickup guys, I'll use another hypothetical example that totally didn't happen. If you're praising yourself as being like the king of game, you get yourself an LTR, and after 5 years, it goes away. Well, then you're no longer the king of game because you couldn't keep a girl. So what happens then? You end up ranting on your way to Starbucks and finding God in your life. I guess it's not a good way to live. It's not a good way to have a lifestyle, and it's way too ego invested in stuff that's, especially when it no longer helps you. Hypothetically speaking, not talking any specifics.
Well, one of my mentors had like a great take at one point, and because his view was like, no one can take an education away from you.
Mm-hmm.
You can lose your money, you can lose your house, you can, lose your girl, but no one can take an education away from you because that's always going to be in your head.
Yep.
And all these external, and this is one of the things that Steve, the dean, actually gets right.
Oh, I'm getting my crayons out.
He actually, it's that your identity has to be built around you and what you are, your traits, your characteristics, your preferences, because everything else can be lost. Like if you're like, have you seen those sad old men who've been married for 60 years and then their wife dies on them?
I actually ran into one last month at Starbucks. He told me the whole story was very sad and tragic. But yeah, I know the ones.
And it's the same thing. Like their entire identity is tied up in their wife and being a husband and being a father. So if the kids croak or the wife kicks the bucket, their entire identity is shot. And this is what Rollo talks about with Zeroed Out. It's basically guys whose identity is wrapped up in their wife. So when their wife leaves them, they have nothing left because she takes the money, she takes the house, and she takes their identity with her. So they have to rebuild their identity from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the idea of rebuilding your identity because we're all kind of doing that on a little bit. Anytime we decide to change something, we're reshaping our identity somewhat.
Yeah.
But
I would myself right now. I'd rather be this guy tomorrow.
Yeah. So you're kind of working towards being that next version of yourself. And I think that's kind of where we have to keep the perspective in this space too. You're trying to become a better version of you. You're not trying to kill your old self. You're not trying to replace your old self. You're trying to make it better. So liken it to buying an old house.
Well, here, before you go, can I, when you say better, I want to make sure everybody else knows, not better as in there's one best, Carl, better for the purpose, like for the lifestyle you've chosen. Because some things are arguably awesome in one frame of reference, but in another frame of reference, maybe not so much. But I cut you off there.
No, it's exactly right. But imagine buying an old house. And okay, you like the look of the whole house, but you're going to have to do some refurnishing. You're going to have to tear out all the old insulation, replace that with new stuff. You're going to have to redo the electrical, the water.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to probably have to do something with the ventilation, maybe get an HVAC. You're not bulldozing the house and building a new house. You're taking that old house and you're slowly making it into something that's more to your preference and more to your liking. But I think a lot of guys struggle with actually doing that and having those hard preferences. And even Robert Glover talks about this in No More Mr. Nice Guy, that nice guys are scared of having their own preferences.
Yeah, which is
like the guy who
it's mind-boggling.
And I just think it's so much easier when you're in that state where you're like, okay, I haven't gotten laid in 3 years. I'm just going to become someone else who gets laid. And then we tell the guy, well, fake it until you make it. And, they never make it. They just fake it all the time. Because they're not actually doing the work. And they're not actually actively doing those things that they have to do to get better.
Well, yeah, it's that means to an end. They don't actually want to get laid. They want to be seen as the guy who gets laid. Totally not the same thing. It's
very American, to be honest with you. And I know we had a conversation in DMs about this, but I think it's like, and I don't want to sit around shitting on America because I think America's it's the best example of a country that's built on the Enlightenment ideals, like legally speaking, politically speaking, philosophically speaking. At the same time, at some point in America's history, and this is probably around the Mad Men era, it went from a doing culture to an image culture. And right now we're living in the depths of like an image/marketing culture. That's why all the personal branding things starting to pop up, because you're no longer a person, you're a brand. And what is a brand? Well, it's basically a container.
Aspirational model.
It can be an aspirational model, but like if you look at what a brand is, it's like take the Coca-Cola brand. It's just like some letters, white letters on a red background. But you associate a lot of things with Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola works very hard to make you associate the right things with it. It's why they don't want their logo at, a Klan rally.
Yeah, that's not very Americana.
So, and it's the same thing, but you actually have to deliver what your brand promises. Because if Coca-Cola promised you, hey, let's take the Kodak moment. That's one of my favorite marketing campaigns ever, because it's basically associating all the important events in your life that have emotional impact on you with their brand. And they could do that because Kodak was they made the film and the cameras that you use to take pictures at the most important events in your life. So that was literally a Kodak moment. You got your Kodak out and you took a picture.
Yeah.
But that brand was so associated with those emotions you feel at that point, with the quality of the pictures, with the reliability of the film, and so on. So that was good brand image. And it's the same thing with a personal brand. It's not necessarily, especially on social media, it's not about what you actually do. It's about what people perceive you to be doing. It's not about what you actually are. It's like mommy dearest. Just everyone's playing mommy dearest now. It's like the perfect wife outwardly, and you beat the crap out of your kids at home. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're fucking your secretary, your brother, your VP's daughter, and a couple of high school girls, as long as you're in church with your family on Sunday.
It's ridiculous. Or yeah, like your Tinder opener gets you banned from Tinder, but as long as you're known as the guy who has the Tinder opener. Not mentioning any in particular, I'm just thinking on that one. Yeah, the whole thing, and here's the problem with it too. So McDonald's, I use McDonald's as my brand example. They don't make the best hamburger. They've never won a best hamburger award. Here's the problem I have with that brand identity culture is they don't make a good burger, but they sell you on that Americana feeling of the hamburgers and the French fries and America, rah, 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 capitalism. But they kind of lost sight of actually making good food as a restaurant. And this is where I find a lot of that brand culture stuff, and it ties into everything we've been talking about here, where the brand stops being about what it's about, and the brand is just about feeling good. And I can't think of any more damaging or dangerous thing to any space, this one or any other one, than focusing on those feelings as opposed to the purpose of what it's there to do. In this case, we're here for intersexual dynamics and lifestyle management. Turning it into a cult of me and the greatest whatever in the whatever P.T. Barnum, whatever you're selling there, I find that does a horrible disservice. And the thing that makes me very cynical and angry at all our audiences is that it works very well. And that drives me nuts, because that's the one thing, like out of all the things you take from this, not falling for that should be the key one, that and getting laid. So I don't even know. That's a nice challenge, I think, moving forward. But I got kind of ranty there.
Well, it's like this gym selfie culture. You don't go to the gym to work out. You go to the gym so you can get a selfie of yourself at the gym so that you can post to your Instagram feed. So it looks like you're working out and it looks like you're active. Same thing, I had a discussion in DMs with a guy who's like, I have this girl on my Tinder. She doesn't have a full body picture and I'm suspicious that she's fat, but she says she's really active and she doesn't eat much. And I'm like, I've never met a fat person who says, yeah, to be honest, I just sit on the couch all day eating.
Yeah, how does he not even know? That's always the rule. If they don't show a full body shot, they're always fat, guaranteed. And even then, some of the ones that do, it's an old photo. If they had it, they'd show it off.
Yeah, but Stoic Red, by the way, is right here. Branding without doing is just LARPing, a culture of narcissism. And I think that's kind of the thing we're kind of living in now, is that almost everyone is doing the branding thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not just in this space, but in life in general.
Oh, 100%.
So no one calls them out because everyone's doing it. It's like you don't want to call out your coworker for having a Coke habit if you have a Coke habit. And I think that's kind of the biggest challenge here, because in the end, it's the whole thing with cults, and I've studied them extensively, and I find them very interesting. Is like the Heaven's Gate cult.
Yeah.
The funniest thing there is like the cult leaders' predictions were wrong multiple times, and people still went with it because they were so ego invested in that cult and being a member of it.
Not just that, it deepened their beliefs. They actually became more invested in it every time it ended up coming as a failure.
Yeah, so what happens there is just that people get so enamored with their own identity, they become a mark for themselves, as they say in the wrestling business. And when you mark out on your own character, what happens is it stops being about how much money you can make, and it starts being about how, well, my character would never do that. And, that's like Vince will fire you for that shit.
Vince will fire you for anything.
By the way, that's an actual wrestling reference.
Which the Vince will fire you for that?
No, what I said, it's not actually like a subtle way of digging at anyone. It's actually a wrestling reference that they actually have a term for it, like guys who buy into their own character too much.
Yeah.
It's like the wrestler who's at a bar and he doesn't really know how to fight, and he picks a fight with like a mixed martial artist because he kind of thinks can fight with mixed martial. And some of the old school guys like Luthaz and Haku, and were real fucking tough guys. Like there's my favorite story is back when Harley Race put a gun on Hulk Hogan in the locker room. But the whole thing with it is just like, when you fake it until you make it, that's fine to do, and we've all done it. But at some point, you have to start doing the work. And I think that's the major takeaway from the game as well with Mystery and Style. They built this whole methodology to get girls to come home with them. But that was all fake, because Mystery was never Mystery and Style was never Style. It was never their identity. It was just their characters that they played when they were out clubbing.
Yeah.
It was also a way of creating a buffer against rejection. So when they got home and they actually had to deal with a girl in an LTR, they couldn't be Mystery and Style all the time, because playing a character is exhausting. That's why it's tiresome to be at corporate too, because you're always self-moderating to some extent.
Yeah, no, agreed. You can't keep it up forever. That's why a lot of guys say don't even think about settling down with a girl for at least a year, because usually you have to put in enough time that she gets tired of having the facade up and you can see the real person.
Yeah, it's like I do that thing too. Is like, I have plates around for, I've had plates around for years. And it's not because, it's monopolizing women. It's just because, okay, let's see, what this girl is like when, okay, let's say she gets fired or she had some real life shit pop up. Let's see how she handles that. Because if you're going to be with a girl for, 50 years, at least put in 2 years to do your vetting.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of guys do that. What were we before the mark, though? There was something else I wanted to get into there with. It was really interesting, but now I forgot because we started getting into more interesting stuff. Oh, well, whatever. Keep on your thing here. It'll come back to me.
No, but I think it's just a matter of don't buy into your own brand identity and just accept that you are you.
Yes, that was it. So here's the funny thing, and it's one of the reasons I really love working with you out of almost anybody else in this space, just so everybody else doesn't think that I think anybody else is trash, but so as far as I can tell, you and I don't really have brands. You say Black Label Logic, but that's because you like drinking. But when you need to cut, you stop drinking. So whatever. You don't buy into your brand. Same as me. Like, I don't really have a brand. I'm just doing things. And then I think the brand is going to coalesce around that, and people are going to decide it for me, which is fine. But we kind of let the actions lead to create the brand as opposed to the brand creating the actions. Just like you were saying, the making your own mark, which I think is important too, because that's the difference between narcissistic fantasy and a ground up building of an identity. And I think it's a nice little meta descriptor for how guys should be taking this space and all the stuff we talk about here. Like, the identity will come. You can't help but have a brand if you're public and in a social area for enough of a time. Why spend so much time curating it when you can just make sure all the pieces in place are things you like and are beneficial to you, and then just let whatever brand comes from it come.
Yeah, and I think, for all my disagreements with a lot of guys in this space, it's an open secret that I don't get along with Glow, and I like to take the odd pot shot. But the thing is, for the results he's getting with his fitness guys, he obviously knows fitness very well and is a good trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And I have disagreements with a lot of guys. And a lot of them are good with their particular niches. And the problem is a lot of the time when they try to extend beyond that, like when you try to bridge into something where Richard Dawkins was my example in something I may not have published that, because when Richard Dawkins speaks as a biologist, he's probably one of the most qualified people in the world to be speaking on that topic.
Right.
However, when Richard Dawkins is talking religion or philosophy or morality or politics, he's a layman, a well-educated, very intelligent layman, but he's still a layman.
Yeah, and it'd be fine if he came at it with the approach that I'm a smart guy here to learn and experience this new thing. But he comes in with that halo effect as if, oh, I already know this because I know evo biology.
So for me, that's kind of be aware of when someone's speaking. When an expert speaks on their field, you should pay attention. But when they speak outside their field, you should be critical. And you should always be critical, but you should be very aware when someone is using their ethos in one space to influence their takes in another. Like Paul Krugman is a very qualified and talented economist, but he very frequently lets his personal political bent influence his economic analysis.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
But everyone does. Like Rothbard did it, Sowell did it, Keynes did it. They all do it because we can't help but doing it. But when you listen, you just have to pay attention to it. And like, what is this guy good at? Where should I listen? And what are his stumbling blocks, so to speak? Like if you have someone who's great at day game, he may not be good at night game. So he might have a qualified take on it, but it's not his speciality. Some guy who just trains, like Stan Efferding is a great example of that, because he came back to bodybuilding after he started a business and he was working his ass off for years. And then he wanted to compete in bodybuilding, so he went and trained with Flex Wheeler, who's really, really good at getting guys to that bodybuilding level and getting them stage ready.
Right.
Then after he did that, he wanted to learn how to powerlift. So he went and trained with Mark Bell, who's an extremely qualified powerlifting coach. And he could probably have stayed and trained with Flex Wheeler for powerlifting, but Flex isn't an expert in powerlifting. Mark is. He could also train with Mark for bodybuilding, but Mark's not an expert. He probably knows more about bodybuilding than most of us will ever know, but he's still not like the best qualified guy to train you to become a contest-ready bodybuilder. And you just have to keep that in mind. Like Rollo is a great guy when it comes to like the macro of and sometimes the extremely minute detail of intersexual dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to learn a lot of game from the rational male.
Yeah, nor should you. That's kind of out of scope. And that's the worst. Here's the worst part. I'm going to take your Flex Wheeler thing. If I remember, Flex used to have 800-pound deadlift, so he was no slouch. He knew how to lift heavy. But it's not the case of the guy, as soon as he gets outside of his domain, is completely clueless. They're usually like a good 40, 50, 60% of the way there. But that's the problem because, it sounds good enough that it could be good, especially if you don't know anything. A guy who's 60% of the way there probably sounds amazing. But you're right. He's definitely not the kind of pro you should be listening to when there's a guy who's top of the field. And I think that's the nuance that a lot of people are missing on that.
Yeah, we have a saying in my domain is that the guy who doesn't know anything isn't that dangerous. The guy who knows a lot of it is not that dangerous. The dangerous guys are the guys who are, 30 to 50% there, but think they know everything. It's basically Dunning-Kruger because they can convince all the guys who know nothing. But they will still make a lot of serious mistakes that they should have avoided if they checked with the guys who actually are well-versed within the field. Like with Fukushima.
Right.
That would never have blown up if they'd had a non-Japanese risk analyst come in there and be like, okay, guys, I realize that there's never been an earthquake here over 7 on the Richter scale, but we may want to build in a bit of leeway here just in case we are dealing with nukes.
Oh yeah, wasn't the reason they didn't do that is because their guys were so worried about having the CEO or whatever, whoever was in charge, saving face, that they never brought this stuff to his attention even.
Yeah, so it's just an issue with
Saving face.
the results you're getting out, because that was always my philosophy with Black Label Logic was, oh, these are my takes on things. I'm an anon. You don't know shit about me. I could be lying about everything. I could be lying about some of it. I could be lying about, none of it. It's up to you to make that judgment. But I'm not based on, my character so much as these are my observations. If they mirror your observations and they help you, then that validates the statements. The same thing with Rolo's like the most central figure in this space right now, is because a lot of guys have read his material and they agree with his observations and that they accurately mirror reality. Thus, he has a lot of credence for his content.
Yeah, it's heavily reinforced. Well, that's how he came up with it. Everybody likes, like, how did you have a blog post for all of these situations? Well, like, if you pay attention and you watch from this stuff, it's because he's had this conversation 50 times already with guys. They've told him their experiences just like you're doing with yours. And he essentially just wrote them all down and then connected the dots where they needed to be connected. As much as people want to say that anybody in this space who's really good is gifted, it's not that they're gifted. They pay attention, they recognize patterns, and they're never afraid to do more field work. That's all it is. And that's what I love. It's a system. You don't have to be a natural Chad to become a great guy at running game or a great guy at avoiding all the hardships we get from interpersonal, or, the sexual dynamics. What you have to do is just pay attention and watch something repeated 100 times and then learn to spot the patterns. Anybody can do that. It's a method. It's like the scientific method, only a lot less rigorous and no fancy coats.
Yeah, it's also, if you go back to it, it's like I had this tiff on Twitter a couple of years ago about game, because I said I never understood why, guys talk shit about, scripts in game, because every guy I know, even natural Chad, has kind of a script he runs through with the girls. It's just he realizes that, okay, that story works better than that story. Okay, this thing works better than that thing. Taking her to this type of place works better than taking her to that type of place. And over time, he just kind of develops a pattern that he uses on every girl, and it just makes small on-the-fly adaptations based on her reactions.
And if you guys don't believe, how many guys do you know tell you the same joke 3 days in a row, thinking you didn't hear it the first time? So it's the case.
Yeah, the comedians are notorious for this. They will, kind of do their bits while they're talking to you. And I still do that, even though I haven't done comedy in freaking years. It's like I'll test material on like coworkers, people I know, chicks at the cash register, and I'll just test it out over a couple of weeks before I deploy it in the field, just because, okay, I know I have a reasonable expectation that this material will work.
Yeah. And it's part of that's how it works.
But to get back to it, I think a lot of what's been going on is basically brand wars.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. So I don't want to name names on this one, but I remember seeing this one guy who's been very critical of a lot of people here for a long time. And I kind of knew, but I couldn't quite prove it until finally I saw a post coming out, a testimonial about his coaching services. And I'm like, yeah, there it is. All those philosophical problems that he had on an intellectual level all went away as soon as I saw the end result. I'm like, there it is. You just want more customers. Which bothers me. Like, do they even care about are these even real arguments? Or are people just will to power saying what they need to say to get things done?
I'm not sure, man, but it's one of those things too. It's one of the reasons why I think a lot of guys like Rich, who would bring a lot of value in their experiences. Like, Rich isn't the most experienced with game, but he's gone through a divorce. He is a single dad. He runs multiple successful businesses. There are a lot of info he can give that a lot of guys could learn from. So if you actually want those type of guys to come into this space, I don't think they're going to be willing to deal with a lot of that posturing.
Oh, dude, I don't even want to deal with it, and I'm smack dab in the middle of it. I can only imagine a guy who's like at the top 10% or top 5% men would. And that's the worst part too, because the guys, like you'll see it. There's always the pile-on groups. Get one of the brands to have one bit of a beef, and 30 guys will pile on to people. I mean, the guys that follow us are no different, so whatever. But those guys are literally shooting themselves in the foot, because if they're having an argument with somebody who's very switched on and they scare them off by spurging out, they've essentially made it worse for everybody. Like, that's somebody you could have learned from. And because you had a disagreement on a 1% difference on his guy versus your guy, you've just lost out on everything. And that's what makes me think that guys want to fail. I don't think most guys can be helped, nor do they want to be. I think they just want an excuse for the failure.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad, to be honest with you, because like when you try to help someone, you kind of want them to get results in real life.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys who are in this space because they just want a peer group. And, you know, a lot of guys are like, they go from group to group. And I've talked about this before, like the guy he was on the football team. Then he joined the military. Then he goes into law enforcement. And he just always has that group he belongs to that is his entire identity. And I think a lot of guys who come here are in search of an identity more than they are in search of help. They want to be like, oh, I'm a Manosphere guy.
Yeah. Which, by the way, if that's your thing, you have picked the worst one ever. Short of the KKK, I can't think of a worse group to be a part of for the brand identity. Maybe the Epstein guys.
Yeah, I don't know. At least the Epstein guys got laid.
Oh, slam!
But the thing is, I understand wanting a group to belong to, because I mean, we're social animals, and every guy needs to have friends, and every guy needs to have girls. But one of the things I think about is, and I think a lot of these groups and, you know, private men's communities can be good for a lot of guys, provided that they're focused around getting results outside the group rather than getting results in the group. Because a lot of the time, what starts off as a way for, like, the Manosphere started off as a way for guys to get laid. You were in this community because you wanted to get your dick wet.
Yep.
Or get your dick wet more.
Super simple.
That was the only reason you were part of this community. Then over time it morphed, and guys started building their identity around being part of the seduction community. And then you get the whole hierarchy within that community. And then you get, you know, they split between, you know, RSD and Venusian arts. And you get, you know, all
Tyler
these
Durden and
yeah. You get all these like little you call it balkanization. I tend to say that we started off as one big pizza, and it's being cut into increasingly small slices based on a bunch of things that have no direct association to why we're actually here. Like, I'm as interested in politics as the next guy. But if I want to discuss politics, I'll join a community centered on discussing politics. I won't be joining a community centered on getting laid with the intention to talk about politics. That's why I've muted like when I see someone who's mainly tweeting about politics, I mute them.
Same
thing with news. Like, I don't get my news from social media. I read 2 to 3 news sites with differing things, and that's all I read, because I don't want my life consumed by it. And I get it, because a lot of guys have never kind of had that whole
spit it out, Junior.
Yeah, sorry, I was distracted by some beefing in chat, but
the World War II thing.
Yeah, so a lot of times they've never had like that peer group, and they've never really had, you know, friends, and they find that here, and it's very easy to get kind of caught up in that and being part of something bigger than yourself. And I think that's a fundamental thing with men. We want to kind of be part of something bigger than ourselves, and we want to feel like we're making a difference in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I side with Jordan Peterson. Clean your fucking room. Go out into the world, get solvent, get suited up, get in shape, get laid, get your lifestyle to where you want it to be for you as an individual. and then try to help other people. And that's why I had this discussion about mentors to you, how you find mentors. Be someone worth mentoring. Let them see that you're actually putting in the work for yourself so that they can be confident that if they tell you something, you'll do the work. Because in the end, that's all this is. Like going out and doing the 100 approaches, that's work. Going out and buying the top hat and black nail polish, that's work. Going to the gym when you don't want to, and like I hate going to the gym right now because I'm only doing cardio and I hate cardio. But I go there because if I don't work out, I get restless, I get agitated, and I have a ton of surplus energy I need to
burn out. Yeah.
Yeah. So and just get those pieces into play. And once you have those things handled, you can help other guys get their shit handled. Because at the end of the day, we're not here to be a cult or an identity. We're here to be like the guys who we're just telling you things that you should have been told by your dad, your brothers, and your male peer group growing up. Because if there were, real uncles, real older brothers, real dads out there,
this place wouldn't exist.
This place wouldn't exist because your grandfather would be telling you about women. Your dad would be telling you about women. Your older brother would be mercilessly pummeling you until you started to lift so you couldn't kick your ass anymore. Your brother and his friends would rib you and fuck with you so you learned how to interact like a man. Your uncles would teach you stuff, and that's how it normally works. It's like we're the only goddamn species that needs a space to teach guys how to fuck.
Yeah.
Like every other species can handle reproduction. You don't have a liosphere, like a sphere of lions discussing how to kill gazelle. It just comes naturally to them. And a lot of the time it comes naturally to men as well. It's just that it's beaten and socialized the hell out of them. It's like, look at how a 5-year-old boy interacts with girls. It's pushing, it's shoving, it's teasing, it's hair pulling. That's a lot like game.
Mm-hmm.
Like every 6-year-old has rock solid game.
They don't know what to do with it, but they got it.
Yeah. And then, but suddenly when there's some real risk involved, they don't want to do what comes naturally to them. And a lot of this stuff for me, it's the journey. It started off, with like the scripted game and the mystery method and all that crap. And then gradually, as I've done it for longer, I've just stopped. I just do whatever comes naturally, partly because things are internalized and partly because you come to the conclusion after a while that I don't want a technique that gets me every girl. I want a technique that gives me the highest probability of getting the girls I actually want. Because a lot of the time, like, you'll be on dates with girls and you'll be like, okay, she has nice tits, but her voice is grating, or, she seems like a pain in the ass to deal with, or, she's too opinionated. I'd be laying in bed trying to sleep and she'd be telling me her opinion on Russian internal politics. It's just like, I don't want to deal with that. So you become more selective the more success you have. That's why, guys who are very successful are very careful with new ventures they get involved with, or guys who are busy are very careful with who they decide to mentor. It's just because they have limited time and they realize that this person or this venture is not worth putting time into.
Yeah. Well, let's think it back to your other point when you talked about how we actually have to teach guys this. It's something I've been saying for a long time. And this is the one thing I'll say negatively about feminism, because I really don't care about it generally. But so feminism, the pill, whatever, they had 3 generations to tell men that traditional masculinity was no good and to give us a better idea. And they've screwed it up for 3 generations. They screwed it up for the dads. They screwed it up for the brothers. They screwed it up for grandpa. They screwed it up for the kids. So like, step aside. I hate to say it, but a bunch of nerds who just wanted to learn to pick up and hit on chicks. Like we're the reason that we got it from here. And people may call a lot of the guys in this space misogynistic or angry or evil. And that there's so many angered guys. Like, look, we didn't make the anger. You guys made the anger. We're technically the last line of defense from a guy going full Elliot Rodgers. So.
And I think also, I don't know, with them.
And I don't mean to fluff us either about this. It's not like we're doing the Lord's work or anything. It is still just a bunch of guys getting laid and wearing funky shirts.
Yeah, but still, though, I think, at the end of the day, we shouldn't be aspiring to build a complete system of thought around this. We shouldn't be building, a traditional, you shouldn't be building a male identity.
Yeah.
You shouldn't
Same
be
as
going
Dawkins, we shouldn't be talking about theology. Yeah.
or a religion or a morality or an ethical system. What you have to focus on is just the concrete things of getting that to your preference in your life. Because so your blue pill identity is gone. So you're going to replace that with something some other guys thought up. Why? Just learn and do the basic things. You develop your own identity, and the next time someone comes and tells you, "Hey, you're misogynistic," well, fuck you.
Yeah. And what else you got?
So it's just about, for me, it's about that, kind of developing a life you enjoy living, and the identity will come with that. Once you're part of, and this is why I love being part of different groups, because like I have a group of guys that I mostly interact with at the gym. Most of them are into fitness things.
Yeah.
I have a group I interact with who are into politics. I have a group that's into drinking. I have a group that's into, specifically wine or specific types of cuisine. I have a group of guys who are into cooking. And being in all those different groups, your identity kind of becomes a composition of what you do. Because as men, our identity is what we do. And I don't want my identity to be a guy spurging out on a forum over, the exact definition of hypergamy.
Or just yelling things in all caps on Twitter all day. It's embarrassing. How do somebody who's freaking out on online social media not know how embarrassing that is? That's what boggles my mind. Like, is there no self-awareness in a lot of people here to not figure this out? And then for people to egg them on, there I get egging somebody on to act like a damn fool is because it's entertaining. It's the Jerry Springer effect. I get that, but I'm getting too ranty here. I'm gonna start whatever. Anyways, how you doing, Carl?
Well, it's kind of the same thing. I don't know. I get getting, because when you create a lot of content in a space, you become invested in that space. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that Illimitable Man pointed out that he was entirely right in is that we've been very bad as a space at policing this space, and Rollo touched on the same thing.
Yeah, well, we have no gatekeepers, there's no barrier for entry, which is kind of what you need to enforce a male social hierarchy.
Yeah, kind of, but at the same time, though, you do have a method for doing that, and that is kind of persistence over time. What value do they bring to the group? Because I have no problem. Like I said, I think it's good that we have guys like you who can actually do this full time, because that means more content and more useful value created for guys. I have a much bigger issue when it's monetization first, value second. And normally how you gatekeep that is like the big accounts will tell someone off or be, okay, this person is not part of this group. And that's normally how it works. But when you get that weird combination of marketing and sales involved, a lot of guys will put up with a lot of things because, okay, calling that guy out would create trouble, so that might impact my sales negatively. Or,
I was thinking too, the Eternal September thing. If you come in with a big enough marketing budget, you could probably drown out just about every reasonable voice.
Yeah.
That's the one reason I really do like, I don't like a snake oil salesman being in this space. What I do like is being exposed to them, because the technique clearly works. If you want to take over a space with absolutely nothing of value, you have to be good at marketing. And I think one of the greatest things, because you're saying is always be better, always be something different, to be able to take that snake oilery and apply it to something of value, I think is something that nobody's really done in this space, not well. And I think it's a good thing for people to aspire to, because it's essentially game on a mass level, isn't it? That's all marketing is. It's game. But instead of doing it to get a girl, you're doing it to get, a customer or an eyeball.
Yeah, and I actually think I like having them here too, because a lot of the guys who get in here are a bit naive.
That's an understatement.
So being exposed to, like, the best way to red pill a guy about chicks is to have him go through a divorce or date a BPD girl or an NPD girl.
Or get herpes out of bathwater, yeah.
Yeah, the best way to red pill a guy about corporate life or business is to have someone screw him over. The best way to red pill him about snake oil salesmen is have a couple of them take his money.
It's a good point. It's a really good point. By the way, Tactical Soap still there. RyanStone.com/soap.
Yes, Ground Shark coffee.
Yeah, and then I got the Ground Shark in the end. Although we'll see. This is my. I think I might be walking away from them a little bit here. I still love the coffee and I love it, but just adding the branding to all the videos, I think I'm going to get rid of that and just focus more on the content side of things. Although I did have a joke too with these. I'm like, am I the only guy in this space that actually liked the goddamn soap? Everybody's talking so much shit about it, and I get why, but I actually like the stuff.
Well, to be honest with you, there was a guy I think we both like. Kind of went on somewhat of a tangent about that was, to me, kind of symbolizes the symbols of masculinity thing rather than the actual masculinity. I think for a lot of guys, the soap is like the ultimate example of that. It's like Durden, Maverick, Bond. It has super secret pheromones. It smells manly.
Yeah.
Smells like the inside of a locker room.
That sounds like the kind of guy who actually listens to the song lyrics in a rock song. Like, just listen to the beat, man. Whatever. All right, yeah, fair enough. I get it.
So I kind of get why, my thing with it was I took kind of a pragmatic view. If it's someone that will work with this space and help bring some revenue into it, so more guys can create content and do value, dedicate more time. Because I get it, like guys with options will only go so far with their altruism. Like there's a limit to how much time you'll put into something if you're not getting paid and you have to take a ton of shit for it. Like you said yourself, like you take a lot more shit now than you ever did in corporate.
Oh yeah, I get paid a lot less for it, take a lot more shit. It's a very thankless job. I hate to say that it takes a guy walking off a suicide to make you actually want to stay in here. How sad is that when people are so ornery? I need a guy to take the bullet out of his mouth in order for me to put up with your crap.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. I had the same thing going a while back. It's like every time I kind of get, okay, I'm done with the pedantic spurting. I'm done with all the drama. I'm so sick of this shit. I get a guy who's really switched on in my DMs asking a good question, or a guy who's actually willing to listen. And it's like dealing with women, because I like, you get to a point where you have a plate and you're like, oh, I like this girl. I could really see me being in an LTR with her. And then she pulls you back off that ledge by doing some dumb shit. And you're like, seriously, fuck hoes. I'm going to go and bang 15 thoughts on principle now. It's kind of the same thing.
Oh, on that note, I guess we got, oh yeah, guys. So Rule 0 is coming up in about half an hour. It's going to be on this channel. Check your tweets. John's going to be on it. Me, Carl, Rolo, if I'm not mistaken. You guys, I'm going to take a quick break here, grab myself another coffee and grab a pipe and then start up on them. So are you fine leaving that on fuck hose there, Carl?
Yeah, sure.
All right, perfect. I'll see you in like 20 minutes.
All right, see ya.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for showing up. Rule 0, intersectional and intrasectional competitions, as well as a whole bunch of navel gazing. We'll see you guys next week.